Well, hello, Satish, and it's so great that we're finally talking in this way. We've come across each other many times over the 10 years that the British Pilgrimage Trust has been around, but you've been doing this much longer, and in fact, you are a multi-dimensional figure now. But it all started with a pilgrimage, um, to my knowledge, and that was an 8,000 mile peace walk from India um, around the world, and it took 2.5 years. And I know you've also walked around Britain, obviously with the British Pilgrimage Trust. So that's brilliant as well. And I suppose I want to just ask, before we do, you also run courses for Schumacher College, um, and that's been a very successful way of spreading the thinking of Schumacher, but much wider than that, and everything that gets us more connected with soil, soul, and society. And I think where you're often hired or invited to come to events to basically be a kind of holy man, an ecological holy man. That's how I see you. And you're there as the sort of elder who can speak, you know, speak direct wisdom. And I love the way you speak. So I feel I'm very fortunate to be talking to you. And Um, so what I'd like you to share a little bit of what led you to starting your whole, well, I suppose you started as a Jain monk, but your adult career as a pilgrim, and then what did you get from the two pilgrimages, the India and the British pilgrimage? What stayed with you?
It's a great pleasure to speak with you, Guy. And I'm a great admirer and supporter of British Pilgrimage Trust. And your work is a wonderful, because I always have thought that there are two ways to live on this planet Earth. One is to be a tourist, or the other is to be a pilgrim. And as you said, that I went around the world for peace as a pilgrimage. And I thought I could go either as a tourist, have lots of money in my purse, and fly, or go by car or train, and stay in hotels, and eat in restaurants, and so on. I would say that would have been a kind of tourism, a sort of like a tourist. So when you go as a pilgrim, and you are going as a pilgrim, I went as a pilgrim for peace. And the peace is not only absence of war. Peace is a way of life. And that means you have to make peace with yourself and be in peace in your mind, in your heart, in your life, and not be disturbed by anything going ups, downs, difficult problems, obstacles. Anything in life comes, you accept them as part of life. So that's a kind of attitude of a pilgrim. And so I said that I go around the world from New Delhi to Moscow, Paris, London, and Washington. These were at that time the four nuclear capitals of the world. And I started from the grave of Mahatma Gandhi in New Delhi, because I believe that Mahatma Gandhi was a truly pilgrim. He lived like a pilgrim with love in his heart, love for all living beings. He had no hatred for anyone. He loved even those who he disagreed with, even though he was fighting against imperialism, colonialism, and many kind of industrialism, but he had no hatred for any human being. And so that's a kind of great example for me. So I started my pilgrimage from the grave of Mahatma Gandhi. And then I went as a pilgrim without any money, depending on the hospitality and goodwill of the strangers. And when I went to Pakistan, I said, "You are Muslims, I love you." When I came to Christian countries, I said, "You are Christian, I love you." When I went to communist countries in Soviet Union, I said, "You are communist, I love you." When I came to capitalist countries like Europe and America, I said, "You are capitalist, I love you." So that's a kind of basic attitude which I try to embrace and hold in my heart, that you have love for all living beings, because it's all creation of God. And if you love God, you love everything. God embraces everything. And so that is a kind of attitude I had of a pilgrim rather than being a tourist. That was sort of idea.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is a mindset, and the sort of I'm reminded of the fool, the walking off the edge of a cliff, the young man in the tarot card deck. It's the first card of the whole thing, and walking off the edge of a cliff, looking happy about it, into the unknown, into the place of uncertainty. And you know that I once heard you said about walking with no expectations, um, and no rather than a tourist who has expectations.
That's
And
right.
and I and but this love aspect is really important too, and maybe we need to make more of that. We don't, as the British Pilgrimage Trust, we don't talk about walking with love. Maybe that's because we're a bit too British, maybe. But might be a good idea by the sound of it. And peace. That's thank you. And what do you think walking without money taught you about
The thing
trust?
is that because I was walking as a pilgrim for peace, wars begin in fear. Wars begin in lack of trust, mistrust. So, how do you show that you trust yourself? You trust all people. You trust the universe. You trust God. You trust whatever is. That really ultimate peace comes in trust and with trust. And wars begin out of fear. So I wanted to practice that love and trust in my heart. And how do you practice trust? If you have money, you go and stay in a hotel. If you have money, you go and eat in a restaurant. You have money, you go and buy your clothes and shoes in a shop. You don't need to trust anybody because you trust in money. And so money will buy you everything. So I said, how do I show that I trust the world and I trust myself and I trust in the universe? So if I go without any money, then I have to trust people, they will feed me. And all the great pilgrims, whether it's a St. Francis or Mother Teresa or Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King, all the great sort of spiritual leaders and pilgrims, and I call them pilgrims, have shown that they trusted humanity. They trusted people and gift economy. So we all give gifts to each other. So that was the reason that I decided not to take any money in my purse or in my pocket and go as a vulnerable and a kind of uh, pilgrim, trusting on strangers. Nobody's a stranger. Everybody's your friend. That was the attitude. And so, if you go as a Hindu, you meet a Muslim. If you go as an Indian, you meet Pakistani or Afghanistani or Russian. If you go as a socialist, you meet a communist or a capitalist. But if you go as a pilgrim or as a human being, you meet human beings everywhere. So that is the reason that I decided to go without any money. And Guy, you will be surprised to know that for 2.5 years, I did not touch money. And I went through Russia, through Europe, through America, through Japan, through all these countries. And people gave me food, they gave me warm clothes in the winter and shoes, because I wore 8 pairs of shoes. And they were all given to me by strangers. When they see my shoes broken or needing change, and they give me. And so I really experienced the love and the trust and the hospitality and the generosity and the gift economy, gift of ordinary strangers. And I came to these people to stay for one night, and I'll go next day, and I will never see them again. And they never see me again. They know it. And yet they were so kind, so hospitable, so generous, so loving, so friendly, so open. That's the humanity. We have to trust humanity. At the moment, we don't trust humanity. This is why there's no peace.
And actually, our charity was the first long pilgrimage we did from Winchester to Canterbury along the South Downs, which was about 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. We did it without money too.
Yeah.
And So I think when people hear about these exotic stories in India and Pakistan, these foreign countries, we imagine maybe people are more likely to be able to do it without money. But in Britain, it would be impossible. But actually, in Britain, it's possible too, because there's something about the traveller that it awakens something in people's memory of the medieval times or even later, that if you're a traveller, you get treated slightly differently, and there's something magical about the pilgrim as well. And then, so this is very much focused on humanity so far, and that's such an important part of any change. But you also have always been campaigning and speaking for the earth and our connection and reverence for the earth. And how do you think pilgrimage helps people love the earth more, and not only just love the earth more, but and then go on to help the earth?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, we need to understand that we are children of the earth. We have, in our evolutionary kind of history, as we say that in the beginning there was just a kind of gas and energy, and then slowly, over the billions of years of evolution, the water came, the mountains came, the forests came, the animals came, the humans came. So we are children of the earth, and therefore earth is like Gaia. James Lovelock's Gaia. Gaia is a Greek word which means earth goddess, and so earth is a living organism, living being. Earth is not a dead rock. Earth is not inanimate. Earth is a living being. It's alive, and it's a kind of living organism. This was the James Lovelock's Gaia theory. And so if we see earth as a living organism, then we will treat earth not merely a resource for the economy, not merely a resource for making profit, making money, running business, running industry, and so on. So at the moment, because of our materialistic ideology and materialistic worldview, we see matter as a kind of inanimate, and it's not holy, not sacred, nothing in it, and therefore we can use it and abuse it, and therefore we pollute the rivers, we pollute the oceans, we pollute the air, we waste resources. And so loving the earth and loving humans and loving yourself are a continuum. You have to love yourself, you have to love all people without any discrimination, and you have to love nature, love earth, because you are made of earth, air, fire, water. If you love yourself, and humans are made of earth, air, fire, water. If you love humans, then you love earth. You have to love earth. But without the earth, there is no human body. Without the earth, there is no food, there's no clothes, no housing, nothing. So earth is our mother. Our indigenous cultures of the indigenous people in Americas, or India, or China, wherever you go, all indigenous people saw earth as a sacred, and earth is as a kind of our mother. And so loving earth and taking care of earth, and protecting the earth, respecting the earth, that is a fundamental responsibility of humans, because at the moment our ecological crisis, our environmental crisis, our crisis of pollution and climate change and carbon emission and biodiversity diminishing, these are all result of our disconnection and our disregard for the earth. We think earth is just nothing. It's unlimited resources. We can just use it as you like. So our modern industrial culture or modern industrial civilization focuses on quantity and not quality. The spiritual values are based on quality of life, quality of food, quality of housing, quality of clothes, quality of relationship, everything based on quality. Whereas our industrial system is more. Nothing is enough. America and Europe are richest countries in the world, and still we are not contented. We are not happy. We say, but more money, more economic growth, more industry, more roads, more airports, more railways, more of everything. And they don't know where the end point is. They don't know when enough will be enough. And when you don't know enough will be enough, or enough is enough, then you never have enough. And so our Western materialistic society not loving the earth, consequence of that is that we are always unhappy, discontented, and a kind of more desires, more want. Whereas if you have a more love for the earth, then earth provides everything. I don't need to fear anything. I have enough good quality, and then I can have more time for music, poetry, friendship, walking, gardening, family, spirituality, meditation, many things you can do if you don't spend all your time earning money, more, building more. And we build ugly. Most of our modern buildings are very ugly. And all our service stations and petrol stations are very ugly. And the shopping malls are very ugly. So in the name of our progress and economic growth and development, we have started to abuse the earth and kind of exploit the earth. And in the meantime, we are creating unhappiness, discontentment, and ugliness in our world. And so loving the earth is a kind of part of the continuum of loving yourself, loving humanity, and loving nature.
And pilgrimage, how do you think walking the earth creates that love? Because you could just love it just being at home. I mean, and being in your
No,
garden.
no, no. There was a very wonderful Norwegian philosopher called Arne Næss, and he came up with the idea of deep ecology. And he said, in order to have deep ecology, you have to have a deep experience of nature. He was a mountaineer. He used to go to mountaineering in Nepal and in India. And he had a hut in Norway. He was a Norwegian. So he had a hut in Norway mountains. And he would take 3 hours to get to his hut. So he said, in order to have a deep ecology, you need deep experience. And deep experience can only happen when you go in nature, walk in nature, climb the mountains, swim the river, go swim in the sea, walk by the river, walk in the valleys, walk in the forest, and experience nature. If you are just watching David Attenborough films on your BBC screen, that's not experience of nature. That may be introduction to nature. But experience of nature is only when you go in nature. So I always go now walking, even when I'm not going on a big pilgrimage, but every day I'm a pilgrim. And every day I walk in nature, along the sea, along the coast path, in the valley, among the hills, Dartmoor, Exmoor. I was recently in the Lake District. So I would say that unless you have a deep experience of nature and you are walking in nature, you cannot experience deep ecology. And deep ecology and deep experience will lead to deep commitment. Deep commitment will be that you will respect the nature, you will love the nature, you will protect the nature. You are nature. Nature is not just mountains, forests, rivers, animals, and birds. You are nature. You are made of the same earth element, earth, air, fire, water. And so that experience, that commitment, and that deep ecology and that understanding of Gaia can only happen when you are in nature. And therefore, I cannot agree that you can have a nature experience just sitting at your home.
Yeah. Well, so as you've kind of pointed to this, if you love the earth, you can get more in love with yourself and more in love with your fellow humans. Um, Maybe you want to say a little bit more about that, or maybe soil, soul, and society as 3 pillars of a sustainable world, and how, particularly how pilgrimage can reconnect these threads together. How does it do it?
It does it because, first of all, we put soil at the kind of first of the Trinity, because we are all soil. The word soil in Latin comes from humus, and humus is the word for human. So human beings are literally soil beings. So we are not separate from soil. We are not separate from nature. We are nature. That's understanding. We are not separate from the earth. We are the earth. We are soil. We are nature. We are as living being as the earth is living being. So that's why I put soil first. But soil and nature seems like an external world. So I also want to bring the internal world, the outer ecology and the inner ecology. The reverential ecology comes from inner ecology. So soul represents the inner ecology. That means that the earth has a soul, and animals have soul, and humans have soul. So what is soul? Soul is what is not matter. what you cannot measure, what you cannot sort of quantify. So those are the qualities. Quantity, you can say, the soil, and the quality of soil is soul. So we all have that soul. We are all animate beings. And so soul means love, kindness, compassion, generosity, a sense of service, a sense of gift, a sense of respect, non-violence, all those values, and the poetry and the joy you get in the poetry, the blessings you get from the spirituality, all those things which cannot be measured, cannot be quantified. That's the soul qualities. So unless you have inner and outer dancing together, the inner transformation and the outer transformation going hand in hand together, like walking on two legs, you cannot walk on one leg. So our universe has designed the world, the relationship between the two. We have two eyes, two lips, two hands, two legs. In the same way, we have these two dimensions of our existence, soil and soul. You cannot have soil without soul, and you cannot have soul without soil. They are two united, two in relationship. So the non-duality comes in the relationship. So although there are two aspects, but one cannot exist without the other. So I put soul at the middle. Then I wanted to bring a little bit of extra emphasis, because at the moment, not only we don't love nature, we don't love the earth, we don't love all human beings. And therefore, we are divided into Hindus and Muslims and Christians and communists and capitalists and Russians and Chinese and Indians and Americans and so on. So I would say that society word represents the unity of humanity. Before, I'm an Indian, I'm a Hindu, I'm whatever I am, I'm a human being. I'm a member of human community. So unless we can have that generosity of heart, generosity of spirit, and include all human beings, we will not going to be able to understand and kind of love earth and love ourselves. So these are three words interconnected. They are not separate in an ultimate sense. But in order to communicate, you have to say soil, we are soul, and we are members of human community. So these three dimensions exist together. But I made this new trinity for our time: soil, soul, society.
Mm. Yeah, it reminds me of our slogan on our homepage of our website, which is "Walking is for the body, pilgrimage for the soul."
Yeah,
Because I think a lot of people, if you hear the word walking, they focus on the physical element of it.
yeah.
Whereas there's so many soul qualitative, qualities of how you walk, not just how many steps you've done or how many calories you've burned, but it's also how much joy is it brought into your life, how many re epiphanies you've had or realizations or whatever. And actually, it was a guru in an Indian ashram in Tamil Nadu, this guru called Amma, who is based in Sri Puram Narayani temple, and uh, it's a man, but with a feminine in her incarnated. It's an unusual concept. I asked her after a puja, you get the chance to put a mala around her neck and then ask a question. And I said, how can I bring back pilgrimage to Britain? And she said, what do you mean bring back? And I said, well, people don't know about it. They don't interested in it that much. It's not that common. It's not an unusual thing. And she said, they need to understand that walking tours are for the body and pilgrimages for the soul. And once they know that, they will be interested. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's very beautifully put.
Yes. Um,
In Britain, people in our education, we need to learn from the childhood that we're going out in nature without expectation and just celebrating. Life and pilgrimage is about celebration, about joy, about ananda. In India we call it ananda.
yeah.
And all our great teachers, when they become kind of sadhus or monks, then they change their name and include the word ananda, shivananda, muktananda, yogananda, sachidananda, vivekananda. All those word includes ananda, and ananda means joy. And that joy comes when you become a pilgrim, and you have no expectation, and you celebrate life as it comes.
Yeah, I agree. Joy is really important because soul, it doesn't necessarily have an emotion attached to it, whereas joy is a kind of a vibration, a kind of energy. It's wonderful. I just want to move on to Resurgence, because that's been your primary vehicle for the last almost 60 years for championing spiritual ecology. And I was just how's the other way around this time, rather than how does pilgrimage affect things? How does working with Resurgent, how has it affected your view of modern pilgrimage and sacred activism? How has it
Yes,
changed you over time?
the editorship of Resurgence for me is not a job, or was not a job, and is not a job. It's a mission. And then when I say mission, it's not a kind of missionary mission, but a mission meaning that I am working for Resurgence, not just as a kind of working, earning a living, but serving. And bringing service means bringing positive, inspiring, and helpful ideas, poetry, art, all those things to our readers. At the moment, our media is very negative. Nothing is good in the world. If you read any newspaper, they're all full of miserable news. Miserable Telegraph, miserable Guardian, miserable Mail, miserable all. There's so much bad news. Whatever happening in the world, the newspapers and the magazines always interpret it as something negative and bad. Uh, so Resurgence is something to celebrate life, and so that has been my mission of life. And we have now, it's a small organization. We have about 6,000 members, and we publish this magazine every 2 months. And in this magazine, we like to bring these sort of ideas and qualities of pilgrimage feeling, that life is about celebration, life is about contentment, life is about service, life is about art and music and culture. Our life is about making things, beautiful clothes, beautiful shoes, beautiful house, beautiful food, beautiful garden. So that kind of higher ideals and values, those are the things we want to promote. And so, in a way, you can say editing and publishing research is also a kind of pilgrimage.
So, well, many people are basically disenchanted with not just religion, but meaning itself and life. Um, Behind me is this Ganesh, which was actually given to me by this guru Amma that I mentioned, and has helped me by removing obstacles.
Yes.
But these sacred places of and the sacred paths and and the the ancient paths, the holy places, and the landscapes themselves are sacred. It's normal for people to imagine pilgrimage with shrines to deities like Ganesh or saints' bones in Britain. But you've also got the landscapes that are more sacred perhaps than other landscapes. And then you've got the paths, which are more pilgrim paths than other paths. One of the things that Amma mentioned once is that pilgrim places are like charging points for the soul, that when you go there, like batteries, and you plug into the mains and you sort of charge yourself up again. It's an interesting metaphor. And I'm just wondering, with this disenchantment and also the need to connect with soil and the need to connect with the earth, there's something about I've noticed about Indian spirituality and part of the spirituality we lost in the Reformation about this materializing to the divine, like materializing in a statue or a bone or something, and the actual paths are sacred and the actual landscapes are able to connect you. What have you got to say about that? Because it's not just about the act of pilgrimage. There are actually these special places too.
Yes, yes, I agree with that. And actually, I went to Santiago de Compostela as a kind of my charging point. And I went to Mount Kailash in Tibet, and walked around Mount Kailash. So I walked from Nepal to Tibet for 7 days, and then 4 days around Mount Kailash, and then 7 days back. So 18 days of walking to this charging place. and I thought that was really recharged and re-enchanted me and my spirit. And so these charging points are very important. And so many people will go in India to the Triveni Sangam, Kumbh Mela,
Yeah.
where three rivers come together. And you went this time in the Maha Kumbh Mela, the great Kumbh
Yes.
Mela, where nearly, I would say, 500 million people gathered together to take a sacred dip in the confluence of three great sacred rivers, Ganges, Jamuna, and Saraswati. And Saraswati is a kind of hidden soul of the two rivers. And that's a soul, that's a hidden, but non-material. So you see the two rivers, but you reminded that there's a third river, the third factor, and the third factor, the third river is the soul, the spirit, which is implicit. And so that's a very beautiful concept. And so having these places, like I went to Iona, and that's a beautiful, wonderful, inspiring, re-enchanting place for me. So I have been to Iona a few times. And so I would say that we need these charging places so we can make a pilgrimage. And once you are recharged, then you have to, I personally feel that I have to see all places as sacred. Life is sacred, nature is sacred, soil is sacred, earth is sacred. So that sense of the sacred, because it's all divine. It's all gifts from God, so gifts from the universe. It's a kind of, we are so blessed to have such a beautiful planet given to us to live for however long we are on this planet. And so once you have charged in those special places like Mount Kailash or Santiago or Iona or some other people will go to Assisi, or I have been to Assisi as well. And so once you are charged, seeing the sacred in all places is the kind of consequence of that charging. Like your car is charged, battery charged, and then you can drive along the road. In the same way, once you are charged, you go along the rivers, along the mountains, along the forest, in life, in your garden, in your home, wherever you are, you experience and practice and live that with the sense of the sacred. That's what I feel that I have learned from these sacred places.
Yeah. It's what's so interesting about the Kumbh Mela for me is that most of these other places you've mentioned are kind of buildings like cathedrals and like Assisi, Iona, Santiago, and Kailash is a mountain, to be fair, but they're probably still buildings there. And whereas the Kumbh Mela, which is the biggest pilgrimage gathering in the whole world by a long margin, um, is a meeting of rivers. There's no
Yes,
building.
no building.
It's the meeting of water.
Yeah,
And I just think for me, that's the most fascinating fact that the actual biggest of all is water,
yeah,
meeting water. And it sort of blew my mind once I realized that. And
yeah.
it's a very different basis of reality, I think, if the most holy is that. I love this idea of water and wells and springs as kind of the bubbling up from the deep mystery into our world. And
Now, Saraswati River, the river, third river in that confluence of three rivers, the third river is the spirit, the soul,
right.
the implicit river. Two cannot make complete. You need a third element. And that third element is like you can have Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, or Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. So the three bring, could sometimes in two, you can be a dualistic. But the third element is the kind of creativity, the creation, the movement that happens, like male, female coming together, and then a child is born. And so in the same way, the two lips coming together, the words are born. So in the same way, the two rivers meeting creates that a third element of spirit, of soul, where it becomes sacred. And so
Mm.
I would say the Saraswati is the spirit. Saraswati is also the goddess, and that is Saraswati is a goddess of art, music, spirituality, imagination, creativity, the kind of inspiration which comes from your soul, from your heart, which manifests in music, poetry, dance, etc. So Saraswati is a beautiful name of goddess, And that river is Saraswati, is an implicit spirit of the Ganges and the Jamuna and the pilgrimage.
Mm. And do you feel that this whole movement of there, I feel at the moment across the world we are moving towards more reconnection with the land, with our ancestry, and with each other. Um, and on this podcast we did with Rupert Sheldrake, you and I, Death, Dying, and Beyond, um, I asked both of you at the end what you thought could prepare you best for death, and you both gave the same answer of pilgrimage. And I'm just interested. I know that was maybe because I was sitting there and you're probably trying to be nice, but do you actually think maybe this is the best practice for preparation of entering the great mystery at the end?
Yes, genuinely and sincerely, I believe it. It's not only to please you that I said it.
Yeah.
I genuinely, sincerely believe it, that preparation for good life, and in Indian Hindu tradition, we have 4 stages of life. So the first stage of 25 years is the stage of learning, acquiring skills, and learning about philosophy, agriculture, uh, good life, how to live, and language, whatever you want to learn. The second stage of life is a householder. So you practice what you have learned. So you practice that in business or in family life, having children and maintaining everything. So learning and then practicing. And then the third stage of life is the Vanaprasth, and that is kind of sharing for society. You share not only what you learned and you practice in your householder's life, but now you share with the community, society at large. And that's a kind of beginning of the pilgrimage, a third stage of life. And so when we say in India that if you have reached age 50, that's your time to go on a pilgrimage. So that's a kind of age, a third part of your life you start. And then the fourth part of life is totally pilgrimage, and that's the kind of you come to your place where you connect with the soul, the spirit, the kind of sacred sense of the sacred of life. And so fourth stage is stage of pilgrimage. Sannyas is the pilgrimage. And so I think that is a true answer. And although I've learned to be a pilgrim, walking around the world or being a monk, or I've lived my life as a pilgrimage, but now I am even more focused on being a pilgrim.
That's interesting, yeah, because most people wouldn't think like that. That's what's wonderful. And you live in Britain, and you've said you love Iona, but are there any other particular places in Britain that have meant a lot to you?
I mean, in my pilgrimage around Britain, I love being at Lindisfarne. That's another very sacred spot, and you have to time rightly so that you can reach. You can reach the place of pilgrimage, Lindisfarne. Otherwise, there's a kind of water and tide which stops you. So it's a very good. So you have to cross the water, sacred water, and that's a wonderful place. So I loved Lindisfarne. Then, of course, I started from Devon and I went to Glastonbury, my first kind of, you can say, and Glastonbury tour. And that's a very sacred place for me because it's a lot of legends and lots of stories and lots of history there. And the people love Glastonbury as a spiritual place, a very beautiful place. So I would say Glastonbury is another one. And then I walked to Winchester and then follow the Pilgrim's Way to Canterbury. So that Pilgrim's Way is also, which you have done, and is also very sacred and very beautiful and very kind of fulfilling to your soul. Very, very kind of, you feel that you are a pilgrim on the path of pilgrimage, because many, many pilgrims have walked on that path and they have left a good spirit and good vibes on that path. So that was also very nice. So these are some more
Hmm.
highlights or outstanding places. Lindisfarne, Glastonbury, and the Pilgrim's Path to Canterbury. Those were the very highlights of my pilgrimage.
Great. And I think for our many of the people listening or watching this will maybe already regard themselves as pilgrims, or they may feel they've done a pilgrimage, but maybe some people listening may not have not have thought of doing a pilgrimage, or don't really know where to begin and don't know why to begin. And have you got any kind of encouragement or helpful tips you can give? Because our job really is as a charity is to help people actually get on the path, not to just interest them in pilgrimage, but actually get
I
them.
mean, the answer is very simple. Very simple. Do you want to be happy, or do you want to be discontented and miserable? That's a simple question. My answer is, if you want to be happy, be a pilgrim. Being a pilgrim will make you happy because your contentment, accepting the world and living with the world, negotiating with the world with a little bit of detachment and a little bit of acceptance, accepting the realities of the world as it is. And the moment you start to accept, you will see, by becoming a pilgrim, you will see that the world is a beautiful place and we are very blessed to be on this planet Earth, and we can live our life joyfully, and all this a struggle and a kind of fight for this, that, or the other is not needed. We are just living like a tourist in the illusion of gaining something more than world can give us. So to be happy, I need to be a pilgrim.
Hmm.
Answer is very
That's
simple.
very simple, yeah. Um, and for you, this is a very personal question, but how do you go back if you had chance to go back to one particular place or path in your life, what would it be and why?
I mean, I went to Mount Kailash, as I mentioned, and I would, if I was young and energetic and could walk and climb, I would go again to Mount Kailash. It's one of the most beautiful peak that I have ever seen. Although I've seen Everest and I've seen other many beautiful places, so I would say Mount Kailash is one in India. I would go there again. And the other very beautiful place of pilgrimage in Japan, similar to Mount Kailash, and that's a Mount Fuji. And I went there, and that was another kind of a moment of, you can say, peace and enlightenment. I felt very at ease with myself. I felt as if I am in a kind of heaven. So I would say the two places of pilgrimage, Mount Kailash and Mount Fuji, these are the two most memorable in my life.
And in terms of Britain, are there any routes? We've talked about places, but are there that you've talked about the Pilgrim's Way to Canterbury? Have you walked any other routes that you would really like to talk about?
Um, I mean, there are many beautiful places, and one of the route I love, which I live nearby it, is called Southwest Way, and it starts in Poole in Dorset, and then goes through Dorset, and then Devon, and then Cornwall, and then Devon again, and then goes up to Somerset. It's a very beautiful place. So it's a 600 miles Southwest Way, and it's a very beautiful pilgrimage to nature. Because when you are starting from Poole and going to Somerset, yeah, the ocean is on your left, and the hills are on the right, and they go up and down and up and down. So like a life, it gives you lesson in life. And so that's a very beautiful place, and I have done that Southwest Way in places and parts from now and then. And that's another very memorable and a very inspiring and very satisfying pilgrimage that I have made.
And just to finish, before we do our how to hear more about what you do, um, what gives you hope right now?
What gives me hope? I think in the world, we don't listen, we don't hear on the radio, we don't read in newspapers, we don't focus on many times on those things, but there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people at the grassroots level doing wonderful work. And, and they are very humble, they are very quiet, they are not in the news, but they are the real salt of the earth. They are real grassroots activists serving and doing good work in their life. So the grassroots movement and the people in those levels have very generosity of spirit. For them, is a kind of whole cosmos is their country. They are not narrow-minded. The whole planet Earth is their home. They are not nationalistic or localistic or something. They are very generous spirit. And nature is their nationality. They are not saying, I'm an Indian, or I'm a Muslim, or I'm a Hindu, or I'm a Christian. Nature is their nationality. And love is their religion. And yet they are serving their local community. They are rooted in the community. And this way they are combining the cosmos with the community and a kind of global with the local and a loving. But they're doing it with all love. They get lots of organic farmers and a gardeners and a craftsman and an artist and a building local communities that's serving poor and serving humanity. Those are the real grassroots level workers with generosity of heart and a very magnanimous mind and a beautiful love in their heart. That is a kind of activity which is maybe not in the main news, but they give me hope.
Yeah, good. Being locals, and that's the message of Schumacher. Small is beautiful.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
I think small is truly beautiful because we are small, our body is small, but in this small body, what miracle we can achieve? What Mahatma Gandhi achieved, what Jesus Christ achieved, the Buddha achieved, Shakespeare achieved. So with this small body, so our natural world is more a kind of horizontal. So the forests grow horizontally. Humanity grows horizontally. Our economic growth is vertical. A few 1% of people in the world become very, very, very mega rich. And the majority of people kind of suffer in the kind of poverty and so on. And so if we can learn from nature and learn that small is beautiful and have a more horizontal, the trees grow and they grow at a certain point and then they stop. And then another tree grows, then another tree grows. That's how forest is so lovely.
Hmm.
No one tree is a kind too high. In the same way, all other natural animals or humans, we grow 5 foot 6 or 6 foot, that's it. And then we stop. And then we have other children and other children and other humans. So this horizontal growth and a small is beautiful growth is a much more equitable and much more natural and more earth-based. And this kind of a few people become very rich or a few countries becoming very rich or few economies becoming very rich is the kind of vertical development which is not right. So yes, small is beautiful.
Great. And so for people to engage with what you've said about pilgrimage and for any other aspects of your sacred activism and your connection to the earth, you've written books. I think there's a film out about your life, and then there's obviously Resurgence magazine. Is there anything particular you want to draw people's attention to?
I mean, in addition to all the things you have mentioned, the Schumacher College is another great love of mine. And I founded Schumacher College in 1991. And the first teacher at Schumacher College was James Lovelock. And now we have a kind of new birth of Schumacher College, you can say, because our home was at Dartington, and now we are moving away from Dartington, and we are in a sort of transition. And so, but we are still running courses, and so I would say that if your listeners are interested, they could look at Schumacher College as one of other my love and my passion. And because the Schumacher College is a center for ecological, spiritual, and you have been there as a pilgrim,
Oh yeah.
and Rupert Sheldrake has been there as a teacher, and many, many other teachers have been there. So I would say, in addition to Resurgence and other activities you mentioned, Schumacher College is another love of mine.
And the books on pilgrimage, are there No Destination and Pilgrimage for Peace? Are those your two pilgrimage books, or have you got more?
Those two books are more directly related to the theme of pilgrimage, but I have written a few other books, and the other book is Radical Love. And the radical love is to love at all levels without any exception, whether you like somebody or you don't like somebody, you agree with somebody, you don't agree with somebody, still accepting people as they are, and loving people as they are, is my book, Radical Love. And then also, as we talked about Soul Society, that's another of my book. And then I have another book called Elegant Simplicity, because I'm saying that we need to have a simple life, but also elegant and beautiful life. So that's Elegant Simplicity. So these are a few of my books.
And the film I went to see the launch is wonderful. What was that called again, your film?
It's called Radical Love, and
Okay.
it's about my life.
Mm. It is radical love. I remember it very strong. There's a very moving bit where you show love for your mother in a way that is very special, and I hope people watch that. Um, well, thank you so much, Satish, and everyone listening, because you're part of this too. It's not just about me and Satish talking. Hopefully, you will talk about all of these things in your own way and from your own experience as a pilgrim, and we can all spread the message of being a pilgrim and making pilgrimage, all of us, not just two people on this Zoom. And if you want to find out about routes and places and other things that we do, events, then britishpilgrimage.org. And we hope you've enjoyed it. And thank you so much again, Satish, and hope we speak again.
It was my pleasure to speak with you, Guy.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Bye bye.